No, it's too dark. Does kind of look like I'm gonna do like a shadow puppet show or tell you guys a ghost story, but it'll do. Hey, how's it going? I'm Nick. It's been a minute since I actually uploaded on here. Last video I uploaded was like 3 months ago, and it was an hour-long deep dive into indie rock, and you should queue it up because that's a feature that YouTube has, I do believe. And you should subscribe because I'm making a follow-up to that video where I'm going to deep dive Midwest emo by looking at one band and all of its spin-offs, and hopefully if we can understand where the genre came from and how it's evolved, we can understand what it's trying to do and why Midwest emo has endured over all these years. While working on that video, I've been looking at a lot of bands from 20, 30 years ago and comparing that to my experience being in a band now. That's topical, I promise, not just shameless promotion. But the band's called West Egg Social. I haven't uploaded the videos here. You can check them out. That bit was shameless promotion, but I've really come to some conclusions that have changed my perspective on the way that I really see the change in music as a medium, and also the way that people interact with both concerts and music, and the way that we have to promote music to actually get people to listen to it. So I really wanted to ask the question, how the hell did the internet make music not fun anymore? I'm so sober right now. You might notice that things are a little different in this video. This is coming from my childhood bedroom with a different camera, mic setup, obviously the lighting. That is just my phone. I'm very sorry. The light bulb is out there and I'm not changing it. This is the last day I'm cat sitting. And if you hear a bell, that's because that cat is running around despite the fact that it's midnight.
A quick note from editing Nick here, the chair that I'm sitting on squeaks a lot. Somehow I didn't notice while filming. I thought I might have mentioned it here because I could hear it sometimes, but it does squeak a couple times throughout the video. I'll make jokes about it by adding little bits of text, but if you hear that, I'm very sorry about it. Also, this video is a little different than my other video essays because there's not really much of a script. It's very loose, and I just totally start rambling at some points. So enjoy this video for what it is. I think it's a good topic. I think it's a good discussion. It's very conversational, and I hope you guys can enjoy it.
When working on that video, I really started to look at how bands 30 years ago would promote their music, and interestingly, how they would get it out there. When we think about the changes from the last 30 years, the biggest one that people will mention is usually streaming. Streaming, of course, has had a huge change on the music industry, and I'm not going to be old man yells at cloud here because, to be completely honest, for my entire music career, if you want to say that, I've been uploading to streaming services. I think quite simply I never really knew anything else. I can tell you the first album I bought on Spotify, and I don't think I could tell you the first album I bought on CD. I know that I used to burn CDs to listen to in the car, but at this point it's been so long, and whenever I've uploaded music it's either gone on Bandcamp or Spotify or whatever. The point being that I'm not too sure that this opinion that streaming is bad is really the greatest or most original takeaway. I know that there's a lot to that conversation and that a lot of people have had that conversation. I talk about it in my indie rock video, and I think it's a lot more nuanced than people give it credit for. I think Spotify is a horrible company, but I really don't think that the idea of streaming being the way that we consume music is actually as detrimental to musicians as a lot of people make it out to be.
Ironic that I'm talking about how nuanced something is and then continue to be very broad in my statement. I'd like to clarify that, yeah, music streaming is absolutely detrimental to musicians in some ways. I just think that the impact of streaming is not as important in this conversation as the impact of other societal changes and developments. Not necessarily that streaming is great. I hope that's clear, but there's a little note for you.
The idea that bands would automatically make thousands of dollars if they just made an album, as opposed to now where they make no money, is just not true. In fact, the overhead that you used to have to do to just make an album would have been huge, so there was a lot less music, and even if you did make that album, it's not like a lot of people would want to buy it. In fact, it's a lot easier to get people to buy music when they can just listen to it. So maybe iTunes is where everything peaked, but that's really not what I'm going to talk about. I want to talk about a different part of music and the way that we consume it that has changed over the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years. That being, social media has completely dominated like literally everything we do. I think the reason why we don't talk about it as much in conjunction with music is because social media has changed not just music, but life. Certainly, if you have a creative career or that is like what you do, you think a lot about how to advertise on social media if you require people to buy something from you. I mean, marketing teams, of course, exist. And so the idea that most people have some idea of this. But when it comes to musicians, there really have only been like three types of people who I see mention this. One is that really bad TikTok, and don't do this if you're a band. I'm not trying to be mean, but if you make that TikTok like, oh, me when I'm in a band and I have to make content so people listen to my, no one's gonna listen to your music if you're just like whining about having to. Don't make content, just post your song.
I think talking about how much I hate this content just got to my head because I'm going to kind of miss a point that I want to make, which is just the fact that most of the time they're saying I have to make content now, as if 10, 20 years ago you didn't have to do something and people would automatically listen to your music. That's just not true. It was actually harder when it was physical. That's one of the points I'm making. On top of that, I'm just going to talk about the negativity, but I wanted to mention that. So, another editor note. There's going to be so many of them, guys.
Like post your song with a black background. I think that would probably do better for you. Then you don't even have to whine about making. No one wants. It doesn't land. Believe me, I think I've probably made that video. Two is that one guy with the cigar. You know who I'm talking about.
Oh wow, another note from the editor. Rather than trying to explain what I'm about to say, I'm just gonna re-record it. Both because, one, I feel like I just came across as too negative, and two, I asked a bunch of questions that I'm just gonna tell you rather than ask and expect someone to explain it to me. First of all, his name's Matt Bacon, and you can find all of his content on his channel Bacon Bits. Primary thing that I was asking was like, I wondered if he actually was quote-unquote qualified enough to make those videos, which is honestly a stupid claim coming from a guy who's making YouTube videos and is certainly less qualified than him. So instead, I really wanted to rephrase that question to, does he actually have experience working in A&R or making a band big? And from what I could find, his only experience in A&R is making these videos, and I think that they're well researched and that he's obviously now worked with a lot of people and probably helped them out a lot. But I do think it's interesting that this person kind of made their career based on telling people how to get big and not just making bands huge. And I don't say that to try to discredit him or to say anything bad about him, but just to say that it's interesting that a music influencer, self-described, has kind of taken the job of A&R.
Another genre that I've noticed is just advertisements. If you have like an Instagram band page, you know what I'm talking about. You will get these targeted ads and they suck. And they are so annoying and they're so lifeless. But they'll be like 450 playlists for just $40. I'll put some up because I'm sure I can find them. But the one that really interested me the most was this specific one where it's like for $400 a month or $500 if you don't have enough streams. We'll run a fan page for you because we know everyone's running fake fan pages because it helps you test content and it gets you more engagement with your community. And I'm just sitting there like, how many local bands run fake fan pages? Because the number is definitely more than zero, but it can't be that many. I did end up looking into it, and the truth is, a lot of bands who are in this like mid to large size, like the 100,000 to 500,000, but nowhere in the millions, usually not signed to a record label, more of that like influencer style artist, will run fake fan pages, and they are very clearly fake. Like, I mean, if you care to look, like they'll be using high quality like press footage, and they'll have like alternative shots of them like filming music videos. It's like, how would you get that if you were just a fan? They're not trying to actually really tell you that they're a fan. They're just trying to make it have this illusion of popularity. And in the same vein, I recently was suggested a band who's in my scene who I listened to their music. I thought that's pretty good. I went to their Spotify page. I was like, wow, that's a lot of listeners for a local band. And then I kind of looked at the distribution on like their songs, and I'm not gonna bore you with like, I've looked at a lot of Spotify numbers over the years, and I could tell you that there was something fishy with the way that they were distributed across their songs. So then I look at it, I'm like, okay, you have, you're in the thousands of monthly listeners, but you have very, very few followers. That's odd. That's nothing, and then I start looking at their other pages like YouTube and Instagram, and I'm like, but you're not getting anything here. It become clear to me that there was an artificial component happening to the streams. And a sidebar, I'm not like trying to like say this band is like sucks or something, because honestly my assumption is that they probably pitch it to like a blog or a playlist, or even they got a cold email. We've gotten cold emails where it's like, we put you on this, and then I've noticed that like we have like 1,000 streams, and then I report it to Spotify and they disappear randomly. It's because they're botted. There are a lot of bad actors who will bot like artists stuff without them knowing, to try to convince them that they can do something and they can make their numbers magically fly up. But the truth is that I care less about the fact that this band has botted streams, or even if they did buy them, which I don't imagine they would, because if I was to bot my streams, I would also bot my Instagram. Nah, I'm just saying. Regardless, I don't think that this band is like maliciously botting their Spotify streams to seem famous, but I think it's really interesting that this band, who I don't know anyone in this band, and then I get told about them, and I think it had something to do with the fact that they had a high number, and that goes really hand in hand with the whole fan page idea now, where we're looking at this, where it's like, hey, here is a famous band, but in reality, it's just a guy from the band also posting it. I think I'll probably start a West Egg Social fan page here, but I'm never gonna post about West Egg Social, and I'm just gonna get heavily involved in internet drama. You know, when something happens and there's a red carpet, I will be the guy on the West Egg Social fan page posting about how that person wasn't on theme with the red carpet.
I'm gonna cut myself short there. This bit goes on for a little bit longer, and yeah, you don't need to see it. If you just search up the West Egg Social fan page, and you guys can see it for your own eyes. I'm kidding. I have not made that.
And it's gonna be on the fan page. Um, I think that's probably how we're gonna get famous. Tangent aside, I think it's really interesting that that really goes hand in hand with people sharing the music. But also interestingly, I don't know if that really means anything in terms of band popularity, at least in real life, because I was thinking about the fact that we've had good hits on like radio, local radio, and streaming that have not really turned into good show turnout. And we've also had shows where tons of people have come out, and I've noticed small spikes in our streaming, but nothing crazy. In fact, as I mentioned, I'd love to look at the stupid analytics of YouTube videos and Spotify. Whenever we play a show, I'll notice for the next day or two like a moderate bump in our streams, especially in the area that we just played, but it always would go back down. Usually I've noticed that especially when we play in our local area, which I used to think meant that, oh, you know, the people who are, you know, in our usual monthly listeners and we haven't released anything, those are the people who are coming out to shows. But interestingly, we played a show in an area we haven't really played very much. We played there, and I noticed a small bump in our streams in the same way, and then it went right back down. And you can see where people are streaming it, like where most people are streaming your music, where your music's most popular after a month. And I noticed that those people almost completely went away after like 2 to 3 days after our show. So people might have listened to it, a few people saved it to their playlists, but at the end of the day, it didn't cause this like concurrent thing. But what I also found interesting was that show was pretty well attended. Lots of people came out. Some people even came out from our Instagram posts. So, what I think is weird is the fact that people listening to our music on Spotify doesn't even correlate with people coming out to our shows, and the people who come out to our shows don't necessarily listen to our music, at least in their free time, which is just odd to me. I think that this idea that there's this very real separation between the internet world and the real world is very odd, especially when you start to realize that Spotify and Apple Music and even YouTube are social media. They really want to be social media. I mean, YouTube has messaging now. I mean, YouTube had messaging like years ago. Real ones remember, but I, Spotify probably has messaging for all I know. I mean, playlists, those are absolutely a form of social media. The idea that you will interact with things in a very public way, apps like Airbuds, apps like Podium, this idea that you need to share with people what you like and what you are, and this is how you do it, is very real and is very influential, but it's not influential necessarily on the real world, because bands that might have thousands of listeners might not even be able to draw 100 people to a show. Hell, they might not be able to draw anyone to a show because there doesn't really seem to be that much correlation. And that's not to say that there isn't correlation. Certainly some awesome bands in my area who have a lot more monthly listeners than us also have a lot more people coming out. But I'd like to know if they noticed the same thing. If you have So I guess if you have insight into bigger numbers, if you could tell me if monthly listeners actually means more of a turnout for shows for your local scene, I'd love to hear about it. I really would. Shoot me a DM or comment it or whatever. I'm just genuinely curious if anyone else has noticed that specific effect. All that personally brings up one question, which is, what is the end goal of my music? I used to think that the end goal of the music was studio work, and that studio was like the pristine standard of some sort of practice, and that really when you're playing shows, you're promoting the studio work. That opinion has really shifted for me in the last 2 years. I don't know if it's because I've gone to more local shows. I don't know if it's because I just really enjoy playing shows. But the truth is, at least for me, and I know for a lot of artists, even bigger artists who I've like watched interviews of, the real goal of music is to play it live, and it is to experience it in the moment with a group of people. And I think for some people that is true as well, and that's why some people would go to shows and never listen to a band. But I also know that some people see music less as a creative work or something to be experienced and more as just content. In the same way that you're watching a video right now, you likely don't consider what I'm doing in this moment creative. I actually really don't myself. I'm sitting down in front of a camera and I'm ranting about statistics about music.
I think editing feels a lot more like a creative process to me than recording, and I don't really know why. I just think it's an interesting thing to note because I'm really creating a narrative out of this. So I want to take that back and say I do think that ranting about the statistics of new music is creative and all videos are creative. And I'd argue just watching a video in itself is a creative process. But back to the video.
But I guess in a way it is creative, but I don't think about the content I'm consuming to be creative. I wonder what the average listener now thinks about. To the point where the average listener probably doesn't think of music as all that creative. They don't think about the fact that someone pours their heart and soul into making, a pretty bad 4-song EP called 1 Week at a Time. It's out on all platforms now, and we just released a single. It's called Okay Man. You've been hearing bits and pieces in the little Helvetica screen cards, and you can find that one. Another shameless promotion. I'm really bad at this whole YouTube thing. All of that really just gets to my point that I don't think the average listener has ever really cared about what music means or why you choose to make it. They want music that they enjoy. They want music that they can have fun with. There are, of course, people who will break that mold, and you can probably find them by going to local shows. People who are going to go to those smaller shows, and people who are going to play in those smaller shows, which is a Venn diagram that is a circle, by the way. I mean, I go to local shows. Most people who go to local shows also play in bands. There's like some overlap on both sides. Back on topic here. People don't really care why music's being made. They just want to listen to some goddamn good music. This all kind of brings up the problem that social media doesn't sell creative work. It sells people. It sells a person's story and a person that they put out to you. When I started this video, I didn't know how to start it, so I pretended to fix the lighting. I figured out the lighting before I did this. I just wanted to look cool. I also know that if I make something kind of interesting at the start, there's a higher chance you'll stick around. So I wanted to add some visual intrigue. I wanted to make it look more like I'm coming up with this on the spot. The truth is, there's a bit of a script behind even this unscripted video. The truth is, I know that if I want to make people listen to this video, I had to share something personal. And I had to sell me as a person who has some sort of stake in this. Because you don't care about the individual work. You care about the story being presented to you. And in this case, the narrative is some guy who's in a band who's ranting about how music promotion isn't fun because of the internet. When music is being promoted, people have to share their story. And most people really think that their story is special. But the truth is, it's not. And 9 times out of 10, it's the same thing. It's the, I have to make content so people will listen to me. Or it's the, this song is the, or it's, I'm so proud of this song and I can't believe I made it. Which, great. The latter. The first one, oh my god. Stop making that video. I'm actually going to start leaving hate comments. No, I won't. Don't do hate comments, guys.
I fear that, especially if you don't know me, this might come across as holier than thou, but I want to clarify that not only is this also true of me, but this is especially true of me. I learned all this quote unquote the hard way. I learned all this through experience, and if I'm criticizing anyone, I'm really criticizing myself and how I used to go about making and promoting my music.
If you don't buy into the story, if you don't buy into the person, then you're never going to follow them. That's what you're doing. You're following an individual or a group. You're not following their music. You're following the individual. If you subscribe to my YouTube channel, which you should, you're following me. You're not following my videos. And I think that that is a very intentional decision. Maybe you can make the best music in the world, but people aren't going to listen to it unless you can give them a story of why they should. Well, they might, but the thing is you're going to have to get them on a platform that isn't social media. And the thing is, if you want to do that, you're going to have to reach them algorithmically. And Spotify really is only going to do that if you already have listeners. So what do? you do? You have to make a story. And if you want to make a story, well, you either have to be really interesting or you have to come up with something interesting. And let's be honest, it's much easier to be interesting than it is to come up with something interesting. I went super off script and I kind of started yelling. The reason why the internet made music not fun anymore is because it's just not about the music. I'm not sure how much it ever was about the music, but I think the truth is it used to be about the listener. It really did. When you were listening to music, you wanted music that you related with. You wanted music that helped you find a community when you went to a show. You wanted all these things. Now with social media, it's about optics. It's about selling someone something that they can stick with and that they're going to feel a connection to, not because they see themselves in it, but because they feel like they're a part of a journey. My band put out a single recently. I kind of decided not to advertise it, at least in the way that we used to, because it's draining and it's not fun and I think it's pointless and I think it's lying. That's kind of what music promotions become. How do I make myself seem so interesting? How do I make myself seem so grand that people will invest their time? And all of 7 minutes, by the way. It's a pretty long song, but what is the average length of a song now? 2 minutes and 30 seconds with 2 clips for TikTok. And the way to get it is by creating something giant. It's by, planning for months in advance these specific releases. The internet didn't require people to make content. People had to make content before. Let's be honest, those people who are saying that to get people to listen to my music, I had to make content, probably wouldn't have had anyone listening to their music 10, 20 years ago either. Not because they weren't making content, but because it's not like 10, 20 years ago there was some magical built-in listener base. I hear the idea that it's harder to connect with people over social media, especially as like someone who's trying to sell someone something, but I think that's not true. I think everyone knows it's super easy to connect with someone. And the real thing is companies want to leverage it. And at the end of the day, when you're competing against a marketing team, you're never going to be able to out content them. You're never going to be able to make the perfect post that's going to get the right amount of views. If you get the right TikTok, it's more about luck on how the first few people chose to watch it and interact with it rather than it being the perfect TikTok that actually was going to blow up your music. There isn't some magical button that's gonna make people famous. Just like record labels would promise these sure shots at fame that were complete bullshit, social media promises you this connection. It's not hard to connect with people. It's so easy that no one wants to do it anymore. It's so easy that anyone can connect with anyone. In fact, how many people do you think have already clicked off this video because they heard this ranty style of thing and they said, well, this guy seems kind of off his rocker. I'm on the rocker right now. That bit is so stupid. Oh my god. We're gonna wrap it up. I feel like I just kind of lost the plot here. I jumped all over my script. So really, why is it not fun? Does it have to do with the fact that we have to make content? Does it have to do with the fact that people don't want to listen to your music? Or does it have to do with the fact that now there's a number? Now there's a number of exactly how many people like your music.
And intrinsically tied with that, how many people like you as a person beyond your music? How many people think that you're interesting enough to dedicate 2 minutes and 30 seconds to?
I could tell you right now exactly how many streams my most recent song has. That's what made it not fun. It isn't the streaming. It isn't the fact that you have to make content. It isn't the fact that this content all sucks and is all cookie cutter. So the truth is, it's not fun because we made it not fun. We all decided that it mattered more how many people listened to it, that it mattered what size venue we played, that it mattered more than making music, than doing what people actually enjoyed. And why do people not want to interact with this? Why do people not want to interact with promotional content? Because it's clearly promotional. No one wants to listen to something that's just saying, hey, listen to my music. They want to listen to something that they care about. They want to listen to music that makes them happy.
I also do want to clarify that I'm aware that this comes from a certain place of privilege because I'm not financially dependent on the success of my art. If this video flops, if my next single flops, it'll be fine. That won't affect me being able to pay my bills because I have a different job. But I also do think that this is still a notable thing to mention, especially because I still love to make music.
So I'm going to challenge you, if you're a musician, don't promote your next single. Like, really, I mean, how much do you have to lose, really? You'll have less streams. I'm sure you will. But I'm sure you'll like the music more. And I'm sure when you go to play a show, you're not going to notice that many less people there. And I'm sure after you play the song, it's going to mean more to you.
Again, I want to clarify that that only does apply to people who don't make a living off of music. If music is a key part of making your livelihood, then obviously that might not be an option, and that's okay. But also, I feel like there's a good number of people who are making a living off music could probably pay someone else to do the promotion for them, and that would probably still have the same effect for you.
And as everyone here, because we all should be listening to music, Spotify, okay? Like, just get rid of it. Stop doing it. Look at Bandcamp. Go buy music and ask your friends, hey, what are you listening to? Give me some music recommendations, because you're going to get songs that you actually like from people that you care about, and you'll put your own meaning on them, and you'll actually start building a relationship with music that, in my opinion, is much more rewarding. So that's my point. That's my change in my perspective, that we got to give up a little bit, and we got to say, does it really matter that much? Or does making something that we care about and remembering that we fucking love music and we want to listen to music matter? So I'm gonna go listen to some music. I got the headphones on ready, dude. See you guys next time. Oh, that's not working. Why is that not stopping? If we could give like some quick prayers to editor Nick, this whole thing is a fucking disaster. If you're seeing it though, it worked. If you're seeing it though, it worked.